When you picture a medieval monk, what comes to mind? Probably a silent figure in a simple brown robe, head bowed in constant prayer, living a life of quiet contemplation. It's an image of pure devotion, separated from the noise and chaos of the world. But what if I told you that this picture is only a small part of a much bigger, more complex, and frankly, more surprising story? What if the serene silence of the monastery was filled with secret codes, mischievous demons, and even a nightly police patrol? Today, we re-pulling back the heavy oak doors of the medieval monastery to uncover the unexpected and hidden realities of a monk's life. Get ready, because their world was far from the simple, silent existence you might imagine. Let's start with one of the most famous aspects of monastic life: silence. Many orders, like the Cistercians and Trappists, took a vow of silence very seriously. The idea was to keep the mind focused on God, free from worldly chatter. But imagine trying to run a massive, self-sufficient community without speaking. How do you ask for more bread? Or tell someone the roof is leaking? The monks developed an ingenious solution: a complex and secret sign language. This wasn't just a few simple gestures, it was a fully fledged vocabulary. There were signs for different types of fish, for liturgical books, for tools, and even for scolding a fellow monk. During meals in the refectory, while one monk read from a sacred text, others would be having entire silent conversations, requesting the salt or pointing out that Brother Thomas was hogging all the wine again. This silent world was a hive of nonverbal communication, a secret language known only to those within the cloister walls. Now, let's move to the scriptorium, the heart of the monastery's intellectual life. Here, monks spent countless hours hunched over desks, painstakingly copying manuscripts by hand. This was sacred work, preserving knowledge from the Bible to classical philosophy. But these weren't robots. They were human beings, and spending all day copying Latin texts could get, well, a little boring. If you look closely at the margins of these ancient manuscripts, you'll find a hidden world of personality. Monks would doodle fantastical creatures, caricature their abbots, or write frustrated little notes like, "This page has been very difficult to write," or, "Oh, my hand." But their biggest worry wasn't boredom. It was a demon named Titavillus. According to legend, Titavillus was a demon specifically tasked by Lucifer to mess with scribes. He would cause them to make spelling mistakes, skip words, or mix up letters. He would then collect all these errors in a giant sack to present as evidence against the monk's soul on Judgment Day. This belief wasn't just a funny story. It was a genuine fear that kept monks on their toes, triple-checking their work, terrified of this mischievous, error-collecting demon. While we might associate monks with piety and fasting, many monasteries were also famous for something else entirely: brewing. Yes, you heard that right. Monasteries were some of the most sophisticated breweries and wineries in medieval Europe. Think of brands that still exist today, like Chimay or Leffe. Their origins trace back to monastic traditions. For the monks, brewing wasn't about partying. Water was often unsafe to drink, so ale and wine were healthier, more calorie-rich alternatives that fueled them through long days of labor and prayer. Each monk was typically allotted a generous daily portion of ale, sometimes several liters. They perfected their recipes over centuries, experimenting with different grains and hops. The quality of their brew became a point of pride and a significant source of income. So, while they renounced many worldly pleasures, a good, strong, locally brewed ale was very much a part of the monastic experience. It paints a rather different picture, doesn't it? A monk, after a long day of silent prayer, enjoying a pint of his own creation. Now, let's talk about something a bit less glamorous: hygiene. We have this image of monasteries as clean, orderly places, and they were, in a structural sense. But personal hygiene was a different story. In an era before modern plumbing, cleanliness was a challenge for everyone, and monks were no exception. While some rules called for washing hands before meals, a full-body bath was considered a luxury and even a potential temptation. Some believed that too much bathing was a sign of vanity and worldly indulgence. As a result, baths were a rare, scheduled event, happening maybe only a few times a year, often before major holidays like Christmas or Easter. Imagine the atmosphere in a crowded dormitory during a hot summer. The serene image starts to fade when you factor in the reality of medieval sanitation. It's a stark reminder that these were people living in a very different time, with very different standards of what was considered clean. Life inside the monastery wasn't just about avoiding temptation from the outside world. It was also about maintaining strict order within. And to enforce that order, monasteries had their own internal police force, personified by a figure known as the circuitor. The circuitor, whose name literally means the one who goes around, was a senior monk with a very specific job: to patrol the monastery at night. Armed with a lantern and soft-soled shoes for stealth, he would roam the dark corridors, checking the dormitory, the church, and other areas. His mission was to catch any monks breaking the rules. Was someone sleeping when they should be at midnight prayers? Was someone secretly eating? Was a novice sneaking out for a forbidden chat? The circuitor was the eyes and ears of the abbot in the darkness, a silent guardian ensuring the holy routine was never broken. The presence of the circuitor added a layer of tension and surveillance to monastic life, proving that even in a community dedicated to God, rules still needed enforcing. Finally, we need to address the immense power and wealth that some of these institutions commanded. Far from being simple communes of poor, humble men, major monasteries were massive economic engines. The Cistercian monks, for example, were masters of agriculture and land management. They became famous for their sheep farming, owning vast flocks that numbered in the tens of thousands. Their wool, particularly in England, was some of the finest in Europe and became a cornerstone of the national economy. These monks weren't just shepherds, they were sophisticated businessmen. They managed huge estates, drained swamps to create new pastures, negotiated trade deals, and amassed incredible fortunes. The abbot of a wealthy monastery was like a CEO, overseeing a vast commercial enterprise that included farms, mills, fisheries, and forests. This economic power gave them huge political influence, turning these houses of prayer into major players on the medieval stage. So, the next time you think of a medieval monk, remember the hidden layers beneath the simple robe. Picture a man who spoke a secret language with his hands, who feared a demon that collected his typos, and who might have brewed some of the best ale in the region. Think of the circuitor patrolling the dark halls, and the abbot overseeing a wool empire. The life of a medieval monk was a fascinating paradox. It was a life of intense spiritual devotion, but also one filled with secret communication, human imperfection, worldly business, and the everyday struggles of life. It was a world far more complex, more human, and more surprising than we ever imagined. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the medieval monastery as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.